we're standing right on the precipice of what might literally be the most important year in human history, 2026. Welcome to The Explainer. Look, what we're witnessing right now, it isn't just some regular technological shift. No, it's a massive, multi-layered global arms race. And over the next 5 years, it's going to fundamentally reshape our economy, our everyday devices, and, honestly, the very course of civilization. So today, we're going to break down exactly who's winning, how this whole battlefield is actually drawn, and most importantly, what this all means for you. To really grasp the gravity of 2026, we kind of have to rewind to the spark that ignited this whole era. Back in November 2025, Google just dropped Gemini 3. This was their absolute most powerful language model yet, and it was so profoundly capable that it blew past the competition on almost every single benchmark. And the response? Well, OpenAI literally declared a code red. I mean, we're talking absolute crisis mode here. It's kind of like how the launch of Sputnik kicked off the space race, right? This single moment totally flipped the board and sent the world's most powerful tech companies into a desperate, all-out sprint. And guys, the sheer scale of this conflict is just staggering. Thanks to this crazy aggressive resurgence, Google's parent company, Alphabet, is now nearing a $4 trillion valuation. Let that sink in for a second. $4 trillion. That massive concentration of wealth is literally restructuring global investment portfolios for the next half-decade. So, while whispers of an AI bubble were causing all this immense pressure everywhere else, Google's stock has just been on an absolute tear. They aren't just participating in the AI race anymore, they're flat out dominating massive sectors of it. But while Google surges ahead, their rivals are facing some pretty brutal realities. Just take Meta, for example. Roughly a year ago, their Llama 4 release, well, it was exciting, but it kind of just missed the mark. It simply wasn't on the trajectory they needed to win. So like Meta's AI chief Alex Wang noted, they had to pivot hard. They've literally spent the last year completely rebuilding their scaling ladder. That means developing entirely new infrastructure and research methods from the ground up, just to get back in the ring for the frontier model fight. All right, let's get into Section 1, the 5 layers of the AI stack. Now, to truly understand who controls the future here, we really have to map out the battlefield. This war is being fought across a very specific 5-layer architecture. Let's walk through them together, starting from the physical bottom and moving all the way up to you, the user. Okay, so at the base, Layer 5 is chip design. These are the microscopic brains doing all the heavy math. Layer 4 is the data center. Think massive warehouses powering those chips. Moving up, Layer 3 is the foundational model. So that's the actual AI brain itself, like a Gemini or a GPT. Then Layer 2 is the product, the app or the interface you're actually interacting with. And finally, Layer 1 is the hardware, the physical phone or smart glasses right there in your pocket. Here's the thing. Most tech giants usually specialize in just 1 or 2 of these layers. NVIDIA makes chips, right? Microsoft runs data centers. Apple makes hardware. But Google wields this frankly terrifying ultimate weapon, and it's called vertical integration. They are actively building and dominating every single layer of that stack we just talked about. They don't just rent their power anymore, they own the whole pipeline, all the way from the raw silicon right up to your smartphone screen. And honestly, that completely redefines the survival metrics for literally any business relying on their ecosystem. Moving on to Section 2, the infrastructure battle. So deep underground and in these massive, super energy-hungry warehouses, there's this silent war raging over custom silicon. For years, NVIDIA was the absolute undisputed king here, right? They designed these versatile GPUs that can handle a really wide variety of math. But contrast that with Google's custom-built TPUs, or Tensor Processing Units. These TPUs are hyper-efficient machines designed exclusively for one specific thing, Tensor AI math. And this explosive demand for custom silicon, well, it's triggered some incredibly severe global semiconductor shortages, which, by the way, is exactly why you and I, the ordinary consumers, are starting to see technology prices surging across the board. And the results of this hardware pivot are just staggering. Gemini 3 was actually trained exclusively on Google's TPUs. That proves they don't even need NVIDIA to build cutting-edge AI anymore. But it actually gets crazier. Google is now selling 1 million TPUs directly to Anthropic, who happens to be one of OpenAI's biggest rivals. And apparently they're in talks with Meta too. By completely cutting out the middleman, Google Cloud sales are growing by 30% annually. They are actively breaking NVIDIA's massive chip monopoly right before our eyes. Not to stay competitive in this totally brutal infrastructure war, the rivals are spending astronomical sums of money. Meta is pouring literally hundreds of billions of dollars into scaling up their data and compute. In fact, their AI chief playfully described their recent smaller model release as just the appetizer, teasing that they're heavily investing in the infrastructure to cook up the main entree. But let's be super clear about this. We're not talking about simple software updates here. These are massive, sprawling infrastructure projects that rival the cost of the Apollo missions, and they're fundamentally reshaping global supply chains in the process. Which brings us to Section 3, the rise of AI agents. Okay, let's pull the battleground out of the data center for a second and drop it directly into your everyday life. At the product layer, the speed of human adoption is just historically unprecedented. I mean, ChatGPT is currently nearing a jaw-dropping 900 million weekly active users. 900 million! But Gemini is right there on their heels, rapidly catching up with 650 million monthly active users. This race to become your primary digital assistant is neck and neck right now. And whoever wins, they get to completely shape how you interact with the internet. But see, this is where Google has a terrifyingly effective structural advantage. Sure, ChatGPT might have a slight edge in raw chatbot users today, but Google possesses this massively sticky, pre-existing software ecosystem. Think about it: Chrome, Gmail, Android, YouTube, Docs. Over the next 5 years, your entire digital life is going to be locked into whichever ecosystem you commit to today. Once Google deeply weaves their AI agents into the tools that you're already using every single day, man, switching to a competitor becomes immensely difficult. Now, Meta knows they can't exactly fight Google on search or email, so their counter strategy, it's deeply personal. Meta envisions a world where you have one or two highly personalized AI agents. They're building agents designed to actively manage your health, keep track of your friendships and personal relationships, run operations for your small business, and even generate custom code and video games for you right on the fly. It is an incredibly intimate, almost sci-fi vision for our future. However, building personal agents that are this powerful comes with some pretty shocking risks. Look, Meta has historically been the big champion of open source AI, right? They're known for giving their code away for free. But in a huge, dramatic twist, during the testing of their new Muse Spark model, they completely hit the brakes. Actually, they discovered highly elevated biorisks during the early training phases. And since an open source model can't easily be monitored for dangerous misuse once it's out there in the wild, Meta actually made the call to keep Muse Spark closed, just to ensure global safety. That leads us to Section 4, the global and human impact. Zooming out to a geopolitical level, the stakes here are borderline existential. The year 2026 marks the absolute tipping point in the broader global AI race, particularly the one between the United States and China. Now, according to Meta's AI chief, the US is currently in the lead. But we have to understand, this technological edge isn't just some corporate business victory. It is literally a defining factor in human history. This is the modern equivalent of the Cold War arms race, guys. But instead of nuclear warheads, it's being fought with massive arrays of algorithms and sprawling data centers. And because these models are becoming so dramatically more capable, governments are finally stepping in. Take the recent Trump executive order, for instance. Governments are actively trying to strike a super delicate balance right now. It's really all about weighing this miraculous, rapid technological innovation against the absolute need for responsible government regulation and safety reviews. There's a very careful, objective line to walk here to ensure national security without totally halting this incredible pace of progress. But back down on the ground level, there is a heavy, very real societal fear regarding widespread job displacements. And, even inside the very companies reading this revolution, the reality is super complex. For example, despite pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into AI, Meta actually recently underwent layoffs. It's a really stark reminder that managing a rapidly changing economy and transitioning workforces is going to be the defining economic challenge of the next 5 years. But wait, because the data actually points to a surprisingly optimistic outcome. According to some internal metrics from Meta, this technology isn't just displacing roles. It's actually sparking an unprecedented era of creation. Because these AI tools are so radically leveling the playing field, we are currently seeing more new small businesses being started right now than at literally any other point in human history. How crazy is that? To really reinforce that, just listen to this direct quote from Meta AI chief Alex Wang. AI is enabling the creation of more businesses than ever before in the world. As these models continue to scale up and become these incredible personal agents, they are actively empowering a massive new wave of entrepreneurs. These folks are essentially the pioneers of the 2026 digital frontier, using AI to allow small, scrappy teams to achieve the kind of output that used to require massive corporations. So AI is clearly transforming everything, right? From global geopolitics all the way down to your local small business. But look closely at who is actually providing it. We have a tiny handful of vertically integrated tech giants who now own the chips, the data centers, the models, and soon the personal agents managing your health and your friendships. So I'll leave you with this. With a handful of titans owning the silicon, the data, and the agents running our everyday lives, who really controls your AI future? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, and we'll catch you next time.